Hi and welcome to the EBS-50 tutorials. My name is Jurgen Rodenhuis. I'm one of the developers of the ESL Server software, and today I'd like to explain to you how to manage ESLs, or rather the basics of managing ESLs. The ESLs are, as the name of the software, ESL Server software, should already indicate, the most important part of an ESL system. ESL, or electronic shelf labels, are the e-papers that we have here on the shelves, going from as small as 1.5 inch all the way up to the big ones at 7.5 and even bigger than that. But what we want to do with these ESLs is not just look at them, we want them to show data from the database in the form of an attractive image that is shown to the user. So the way that we do that is through the ESL page. So I've booted up the EBS-50's ESL Server software interface, and I've gone to the ESL page, and this is the main overview that you get for all of your ESLs. And this is the simplified view to help you get started easily. So we've got a list of ESLs, and on top, we've got a couple of filters, so we can say, show me everything that has a problem. Well, this unit was seen 6 minutes ago and hasn't been seen since, so that unit is offline. That is an error. A lot more units that have gone offline and probably moved out of range, or were connected to a base station that we're no longer connected to, or perhaps that base station has gone offline. Simply put, this is a list of everything that is giving issues at the moment. And in the status column, you'll see what the issue is. Then we've got inactive, which is basically asking for units that are no longer polling the base stations. Basically everything that has been seen in the last 15 minutes. Well, of course, if you've taken some units out of the store, or if you've disconnected the base station, it's obvious what happened, but it's always useful to get a list of everything that's gone wrong. You can also look at all of your unlinked ESLs. So basically all the ESLs that you have anywhere in your system that you can still link to products. Because, as I said, ESLs are meant to show images from the database, so the unlinked units basically are units that you can still link to products and attract customers with. You can also get everything with a warning. A warning is something that might become a problem in the future. For instance, I've got a couple of units up here that are linked to products and their status is okay, but they are reporting that their battery is starting to run a bit low. Now you can also make an overlap with others. So, do any of my linked units have a warning? Yes, 2 of them. Do any of my linked have problems? No. Okay, well that's a good sign, because our linked units are by default the units that are actually in the store linked to products that we want to use. So if there are any problems there, we want to know. But there aren't any problems with our linked units. That is awesome. We can also take a look at everyone that is active. And active means is currently connected to the base station and is polling. We can also say, give me everything that's active and unlinked. In other words, all of the ESLs that are connected to my base station, but are not yet linked to a product. Well, then you've got the list itself. You can scroll down and all of the ESLs that you have are in this list. And you can keep scrolling all the way to the bottom. And all of the units that are in the display will update. So if you're scared about how much data this will use if you're using the ESL server on a mobile device, nothing to worry about. Only this list of units that is currently in view will actually give updates through the UI. The other ones that we aren't looking at right now aren't important, so data usage shouldn't be a problem. So this is the simple view. We've got the unique ID, which is the database ID for the product that it's linked to. The description is what is in the description field of the database. For information about the database options, we have a database tutorial. This is the MAC address of the unit, which is the physical hardware address of that unit. Basically, it's his thumbprint. The variant, which basically means what screen size is this, when was the last time it pulled, and what is its status. And this one has status OK, and this one has status OK for the link, and the battery is running low for the battery. Now they report a lot more information, so we can also show details or show all the details. And then you'll see stuff like, well, what image file is it currently showing? What is the pull interval, or how often, in how many seconds will it pull the base station again? What channel is it operating on? What channels is it searching on? How is the battery doing? What is the battery doing in voltage terms? What is the firmware version on the unit? All of these are not that important for day-to-day use, but if you are trying to find out why a unit has a problem or an issue, these columns are pretty helpful in finding out what is wrong. But by default, this is all that you need. So let's click on one of these ESLs, and I'm going to click on the large 750 that we have, which is this one. And if we click, we by default get the link screen. The most important part, of course, of an ESL is that you want to show information from the database. You get the MAC address of the unit you clicked at the top. If it's already connected, it shows the unique ID. It shows us a preview of the picture that is shown on the ESL. We can click the pencil icon and we can go through the database and say, well, now I want to connect it to this product, for instance. It gives us a preview, so we know what it's going to look like once we press apply. We can also say, well, I actually want to unlink this product. I want to remove the connection between this ESL and this product. Or we can just cancel what we're doing and keep the unit as is. You can also say, I want to select more than one unit. And then you can choose the action link and then link multiple at the same time. You can also select units of different screen sizes. For the ESL server, it simply means I want to link this MAC address to this product ID, and that's all. So I can just click apply, and it will establish a link. 2 ESLs have been linked to that product. And we'll see in the status screen that it shows the image is pending. And as soon as the unit connects to the base station will say, I've got a new assignment for you, show this new image, and they will update in a second. Now, I already showed you the drop-down, but let's go through a couple more of them. There are a lot of options. And like I said, the basic one is linking, and linking can be gotten through the shortcut of just clicking on a row. But you may also want to unlink it. You can refresh the ESL image if the image is looking a bit faded, or I don't know, the batteries have been replaced and the unit looks a bit odd, or it was face down for a while and the ink has gotten a bit weird in color from lying face down, which is not how you're supposed to store them. You can say refresh the image and it will update the last image that was sent to the unit. If that image is not correct, you can say resend, which is basically, I think something went wrong with sending the image, so I'll do it again. I can tell it to show the default image, which is kind of like this one with a small barcode in the middle and the Opticon logo and the MAC address. This is the default. This is what you will see when you order new units from Opticon. You can request the ESL settings, which was in that long detailed list. If you want to make sure that you got the latest Intel, you can request all of those settings. You can move ESLs around to other base stations. This one makes it go to the first base station it finds, which is usually the best one to connect to because it's got the strongest signal. You can kick it, which means disconnect from this base station and find anyone else but me. If there aren't any base stations, don't be worried, they won't get lost. They'll come back to the original base station if they can find anyone new in 15 minutes. If you know exactly where you want to move it, you can say, I want to move this to another base station. And then select the base station that you want to move it to. You can reset an ESL. Basically, that gives it the command to shut down its hardware and boot up again. So if you have any weird issues that you don't really understand, just tell the units, reset, just try again. Something went wrong during the communications, let's just start from a clean slate. You can delete an ESL. Basically, if you are moving ESLs away from your store, you can use the delete function to just say, okay, any remnants that you have of this ESL, anywhere in the logs or in the link tables, just remove it, because this label is no longer here, just delete it. You don't need to remember anything about this. You can set ESLs to factory defaults. If you have issues with units that are doing weird with their screen and you don't know what is wrong, or if they had a firmware update and someone took out the batteries, if you say set the ESL to factory default, it will basically wipe everything from the chip except its bootloader memory that we at Opticon programmed into the unit, and it will just act as though the unit came newly from the factory. You can store the current image on the ESL. This is if you want to switch between different images. You can set the LAN ID of an ESL. Basically, that means a base station has a LAN ID. If you change that LAN ID to something other than 0000, which is the default, you can say an ESL that is on this base station with this unique LAN ID, I want that ESL to also use that LAN ID. And what that means is that that ESL will never leave that base station or any other base station that has that LAN ID. Of course, if you want to remove that again and just say that ESL can connect to any base station, you can clear the LAN ID. You can change the poll settings, so how often do you want the ESL to talk to the ESL server and get information. You can change the display options. For instance, this unit is now upright, but if I had installed it upside down, I would say the display is flipped. You can set the scan channels. By default, ESLs will search on channels 11, 15, 20, 25, and 26. But if you have issues with all of those channels or with some of them and you want to use different channels instead, you can say set the ESL scan channels and tick the ones that you want to use. You can also deactivate a unit, and deactivate means I want you to stop polling for information and just go into deep sleep mode. Basically, you use that if the labels are going to be moved by airplane, because airlines aren't really too happy about units using the wrong wireless protocol while the plane is trying to fly. You can update the firmware. And these three at the bottoms are basically only for development issues. You can program a MAC address, but they already come pre-programmed. Test for the RF, well, that's only if there are really weird issues with the radio space in your store. And updating the waveform has to do with how the e-paper is updated. So that is literally every single option you have for your ESLs. That's a lot to take in. So let's get back to something a bit more fun. I just talked about deactivating units for airplane travel. And I've got a couple of units here actually that are deactivated. It's easy to see. You've got the big barcode in the middle, and usually at the top left there is a counter. And that counter shows how many times the unit has boot up. But in this case, it says deactivated on both units. They are no longer communicating with any base station, they are in sleep mode. So right now we can't use them because they're not talking to the base station at all. But every once in a while they will turn on their radio and they try to listen if there is an activation signal somewhere nearby. So how do we get that activation signal? Well, we go to the ESL menu and click Reactivate ESLs. And we are greeted with an interface that allows us to wake up the ESLs. First we choose which base station is going to perform the action, because reactivating ESLs is different from normal communications. Basically, you're telling the base station to just continuously send out a wake-up signal to any and all ESLs that are deactivated. Now, these units I've got on my desk are 153Rs, so I'll choose that one from the drop-down list. You can say I want to wake up every single one. Well, these aren't the only 153Rs we have here. We've got a whole warehouse with units like these as well, so we don't want to wake up everything that is in storage. So we'll just say, no, I know that this one is from 23837 to B2823837, and just wake up this one unit and nothing else. Then we press start and we see a small spinner going around. And basically, that base station that we selected is now continuously sending out a wake-up signal to this ESL. And once an ESL is in sleep mode, it will very intermittently open up its radio channel for a fraction of a second, see if there's an activation signal, and if there isn't, it'll go back to sleep. And it can actually get up to 15 minutes of sleeping time, so just give it a couple of minutes to make sure that it's got the time to actually get the signal. Now there are a couple of tips and tricks, of course. You want to keep this unit as physically close to the base station doing the waking up signal, of course. You want to make sure that the base station is still connected, and the reactivation signal also means that the base station is no longer performing its normal operations, so any ESLs that are connected to that base station will now start missing poles. So if you were also busy and uploading images to ESLs, yeah, the base station is now busy doing something else. So make sure that you're not using a base station that you need to actually perform system critical tasks. So after a while, the activation signal has done its job, and we can see in the ESL server that one ESL, the one we wanted to reactivate, has done so. So we can say that the base station can stop its reactivation. Well, it says there's a connection error, but basically that's because we said stop your current functions, so the unit is actually rebooting. So don't be warned by that signal. Also, the spamming mode that it's in to wake up ESLs can also mean that the yes, I've woken up message that the ESL sends back may be missed. So even if the counter stays at 0, be sure to check at the actual physical labels to see if they've woken up. Well, this one has, because we can see in the top left, instead of the word deactivated, it is now saying 12. This is the 12th time that this unit has booted up from scratch. And this is unit 3A37, so we can also press the search bar and say, okay, we've just woken it up. Is it already connected to my base station? And yes, it actually is. So we can click that we want to link it to any old product. So let's go for these women's heels. We can press apply, the link is established, the image is pending, and so the next time that the ESL asks the base station, hey, got anything new for me to do? The base station says, yes, actually, I've got a new image for you. That image is then transmitted wirelessly to the unit, and once it arrives, the unit will update and show the new image on its screen. And as you can see, it is now updating to this image that we wanted. And looking in ESL Server, it says status OK. It should show a certain image. It has been sent to the unit and it is being shown by the unit. And that is everything you can do with your ESLs. Thank you for watching this tutorial. There are other tutorials in this series as well. You can find a link to the playlist in the description. If you have any other questions about this system, you can get the contact information from Opticon in the description as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.